We're all on. We can hear. All right. Welcome, welcome, new folks. What's up, Finisher? Crowos here. Sassafras. Catatonic and Gin. That's a neat name. That's a unique one. I like that. Carrie Machette, Twisted Mist, Silent Soliloquy. Welcome, welcome. Who else we got here? Carol's in here. Leah Bennington. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Denise, go play outside. All right. Well, we're gonna play inside today. The weather is shitty. The internet's weird. I think we're on though. I'll just have to Yeah, this is ridiculous. I don't know what it's doing. It's okay. I think we're still on. Something or somebody doesn't want us getting closer to the truth. It seems like. That's a little weird. It's a little weird. I think. It's, yeah. Here, we're gonna flip this on. Because we're starting to see things float around, and we want people to be able to find their way back and follow along with us as it updates. Because obviously there's some big revelations with the Buzzfield and Rob Reiner sphere. For you guys that have been following along, we've been mapping out the connections between the Reiner situation, the Tommy Lee Jones, his daughter just passed not long ago, that Matt Prokop situation, the former child star that was arrested for possession and promoting of harm material. They're all kind of 1 or 2 degrees of separation. And basically, as we speak, there is the opening night at Buzzfield's B Street Theater presenting Misery in association with Rob Reiner's Castle Rock Entertainment. So obviously, if you guys have seen the other video, we're mapping out and covering some of those connections, and I had mentioned that near the end of the video, and just the B Street Theater being this children's theater that he's been operating for quite some time. So he's had all kinds of access to children beyond the directing on film sets or TV show sets. And I mean, like, the connection there is undeniable. That, even if some of the other connections might be, some people might feel we're a little reaching. I mean, like that, the timing is impeccable, and then as things have been unfolding, obviously he's saying that he didn't do it, that it's a retaliation because the kids weren't welcome back for a next season. But obviously there's a history going back to 1994 on Rob Reiner's Little Big League. Was the first accusation, which he ended up having to settle. He had filed a defamation report against that accuser, and that didn't work, so he ended up having to pay legal fees for that as well. And then there was somebody that's come forward as well, too, that during an audition felt uncomfortable and felt that they were trespassed upon, touched inappropriately, allegedly. So, I mean, I feel like there's one too many accusations here to ignore that. And I mean, obviously until decided by the court of law. But there are some compelling connections within this sphere, and with the revelations of the last stream. For those of you that were here for the last stream, we have been kind of tracking the clubs. Like, forget religion, forget politics, forget language, culture, none of that matters. There's certain little clubs that at the time in the early 90s were leaving, I'm just going to adjust the size of this here. Sorry, one sec. At the time, we're trying to be a lot more open about their beliefs. These groups like this is one of probably many different subsect groups. But this is one of the big clubs that, as we covered in the last stream, there were certain filmmakers and certain movies and certain child actors that were the fan favorites. And then also very compelling connections to fairly prominent people in the industry. This Todd Phillips did like the Hangover trilogy. He did the Joker movies. He did a bunch of pretty big, like blockbuster type hits, I guess you could say. But he is also part of he was the producer for this movie in 1994, which was basically people that are interested in children, in little boys, that they're basically trying to justify that by the grooming and enticing process is a loving thing, and that justifies trespassing against the children. But as we know, obviously that's not the case. Children cannot consent, and if anything, that makes it like more. I feel like there's like more of a multi layers of damage that can follow one going into adulthood. You know, there's certain physical traumas that happen that obviously it's very damaging, but there's emotional violence and psychological damage that comes with all of this along the way. So as I was mapping all of that and digging deeper, there has been a lot more red dots that I've come across that are very tightly connected within some certain people within this sphere, which just makes it all the more questionable and all the more concerning, I guess you could say. Like we're really starting to zero in on certain clusters and what their preferences were and who the targets were. I've also started marking, as you can see with some of the movies, being the degrees of TW Theory, which if you're not familiar with the TW Theory just yet, I definitely recommend. There's the article linked in the description. I'm going to be updating that more based on what was discovered, digging more into this group. And they'd left a breadcrumb trail, basically. They'd left, and I'd found like a FBI file with like 500 plus pages, and it was heavily redacted, and obviously there was no harm material, like there's no pictures or anything like that. But I was able to feed that into an AI and collect and find out who exactly their favorites were, like who the most mentioned child stars were, who the most mentioned, what the most mentioned movies were. And what really struck me as concerning, I guess, in a way, is that it's not even just the TW theory of the movies that these people are looking for. They're looking for movies that help them groom and entice the kids that they have access to. So like the one big fan favorite for this group is The Karate Kid. And there's no scenes in that movie that are questionable. Like the movie itself is not a trauma, and like there's really nothing questionable about the movie whatsoever. But the themes of the adult, the older man mentoring the young boy, and like there's just certain vulnerabilities and themes in that movie that they had noticed and aided them in their own tactics, in their own process of trying to bring a child and gain their trust and gain their whatever, like they're doing their process of trying to trespass against the child. So I'd also done a follow-up article, and I guess I should probably link it from the TW article as well. It's just been such a harrowing few weeks. It's like we're 3 weeks into this year and it already feels like it's been a whole year. And obviously just this whole thing has like been so mentally exhausting, and how many more red dots have been added. And like I started color coding the dots because there's 2 or 3 of them actually. I should also color code those differently that are an adult, but it was kind of a little bit iffy, a little questionable, especially for some of the movies they and shows they had appeared in that maybe they were going to say something. I don't know. That obviously I'll leave that up to your own interpretation, and you guys can read into things and do your own research, draw your own conclusions. But I've started putting the red dots with the black font are ones that had chosen to take their life versus an accident, where the majority of them it was an accident. Obviously, I think we covered the Chris Pettiette the other day, and I had started mapping more of who was connected to this Bob Villard, this publicist, agent, photographer guy, who was connected to not only to a ton of red dots, but he was basically running a front of creating material, but he was like using like selling headshots, like topless headshots and stuff like that as the front, I guess, the front end of the business, and then that would bring in the rest of the clientele, and then there was harm material being made. I identified a couple other, just within this same sphere, connecting onto things that already existed, like the Growing Pains we've talked about. That was a show that Brian Peck goes all the way back. Some of you are familiar that he had trespassed against Drake Bell while working on Nickelodeon. But what a lot of people don't know is that he had been, I'm just going to adjust some of these things while I'm at it. I've been moving stuff around and trying to organize, so some stuff's a little off. But Brian Peck had been working in the industry since all the way back, like late 70s, early 80s, on a show called Growing Pains, which Leonardo DiCaprio had been on. And he also had been represented for a time by that Bob Villard. So we're kind of like there's more connections in between things. And I guess if anything, you know, he hasn't become like a red, he's not a red dot, he's not a blue or pink dot, he's not a dot, significant in any such way. But I know a lot of people have come down on him pretty hard for who he chooses to date. And obviously, yeah, as he's getting older, it's getting weirder and weirder all the time. But for what he was surrounded by, what he's chosen to do and how he's turned out is kind of like a miracle. Beyond all miracles for how surrounded by like all these blue dots for those of you that are new here. And I've added in obviously the legends on the side, so that helps. But all the blue dots are either had multiple allegations, had settled out of court, or were convicted of harms or trespasses against young boys. So that's the blue. And then the pink, I've started adding more of the pink, and the dark pink is women. Which that all matters too, like trespasses against any adults, any vulnerable people, all counts also. But obviously we're mainly mapping the crimes against children here. So I had added in, like, there was Seventh Heaven needed to fit in here somewhere, and this Aaron Spelling guy, there's so much going on there, so I needed to like calculate where I was going to fit in that whole thing. And where it connects to, but there is a lot more connections in between here that just sort of solidify that there was possibly something a little more organized going on within this sphere. Now, regardless of whether or not these people, these specific giants, knew that they were creating content that was appealing to a certain clientele, to these people or not, there is now becoming more and more evidence that, we're identifying the people with the dirty hands. Because a lot of times in this case, the giants don't want to get their hands dirty, right? And I mean, we've got examples on examples. The main one being the Victor Salva, who went on to do the Jeepers Creepers franchise. But that would be after he had used, this movie basically was as a front to do crimes against this child, and he was fully funded and provided the camera equipment by this company, which is a joint venture between, as you know, George Lucas, Star Wars, and Francis Ford Coppola. He's known for like Apocalypse Now, the Godfather movies, like he did a bunch of stuff, Dracula. He did a ton of stuff in the 80s, 90s. He was a big deal back then. But after Victor Salva went to prison, not only did he get out and was able to work within the Disney sphere immediately after with this movie Powder, but then Coppola went ahead and backed him for the Jeepers Creepers franchise. So, and in this case, there was material made. There was videos made and pictures. So it begs the question if not only was this just a front for this guy, if that was part of the arrangement. Like, this is why, because this movie wasn't really, like, this movie could have been made with, like, $5,000 in your backyard, this Clown House. It really wasn't anything spectacular. And Coppola had given him $250,000, $250,000 to do Clown House, and then went ahead and backed him on Jeepers Creepers. So that's sort of an example of, maybe there was an other arrangement happening there, that it wasn't really about this movie, and it maybe, you know, yeah, the Jeepers Creepers ends up being a big successful thing, also great. But this situation not really being about this movie, but about the content that was made. And then, so these people don't get their hands dirty, you know, and then wherever it goes from there, wherever it's distributed from there, who knows? But it ends up in the hands of people like this Matt Prokop guy, who, if you've been following, you know, that is like 1 or 2 degrees away from the Buzzfield situation, which this situation, if anything, it kind of just further highlights that, you know, he's trying to say that the kids weren't welcome back. Buzzfield's trying to say the kids weren't welcome back for the next season, and that's what they're retaliating, that the mother's retaliating. But this was all brought to their attention from a doctor's point of view, that there was all the signs and indicators of the mental unwellness associated with trauma, the signs and indicators like bedwetting and different other indicators, and they brought them to the doctors, and that's where, first off, that's where they had started questioning the kids of, like, who's, like, what's been going on here, right? But not only that, but on The Fosters, another show that Buzzfield had worked on, there wasn't an allegation, but there was a young man, he's a young man now, but a young boy at the time, where did it go? Jake T. Austin, I think his name is. He's a Disney kid. Jake T. Austin was a Disney kid. And he was on that show originally as one of the characters. And very early on, he ended up quitting. And they replaced him. And the whole thing was, he was trying to open himself up for bigger opportunities. But there wasn't any other opportunity lined up. So it's more like there was some other issue on the set that he didn't want to be a part of and left, and then they had to replace him. So it seems more to me like that as soon as these problems started coming up, and obviously as soon as this started coming to light, the mother took the kids off the set and off the show. They had to replace the kids. Like, this is in my opinion, because we don't know for sure, obviously, until this is all tried in the court of law. But in my opinion, they had quit. And it was November of 2024 that there was formal complaints made with testimony from the doctors, with other evidence. You know, there was more to it than just them being like, oh, we didn't make it for the next season, so we're going to make a claim. There's obviously more to that, and there being multiple different accusations. And then there being the connection between the B Street Theater and Misery, Castle Rock, Reiner, knowing what the situation is with Nick Reiner. And I mean, I keep saying it, I know for some of you that have been following, I'm kind of repeating myself now, but I mean, what makes a kid, like, even beyond the parasite, before all that, what makes a kid look shell-shocked at 7, be heavily dependent on heavy narcotics by preteens, and then be the prime suspect of parricide, right? So, which brings us to, I have now put Michelle Reiner on here. I've got to connect her back. She's probably going to move. It's really hard now that there is so many interconnections and so many cross connections happening to fit more people on here. So I'm going to have to do a lot more organizing, and I keep meaning to, like, just step away and take a break from the map. But I keep getting sucked back in. I keep people mentioning stuff in the comments, and I'm coming across stuff and having to add more dots. So it is getting a little crazy. But yeah, like, even more compelling cross connections between some of these red dots as well. I've added in, I think we covered Amanda Peterson on the other one, but there was this Ashley Aston Moore connected to some interesting media, connected back to certain companies. But it's just now it's starting to get more compelling, and now it's starting to, like I said, we're starting to be able to identify more of the clusters that all lead back to certain particular people or companies. And then make of that what you will. Again, I can't say anyone's guilty of anything without there being any reports or it being in the court of law. Like, there's a lot of people on here that are gray dots that aren't necessarily, they haven't done anything wrong. They just are an interesting connection because I need to investigate that further. They were a victim, or they're a bystander, or there's something there, but there's no proof. So I can't make them a blue or a pink dot, but there's something interesting there. So I'm starting to dig into those circles and spheres a little more. There was also a rumor, actually, speaking about the Buzzfield thing, there was a rumor that Jennifer Love Hewitt had felt uncomfortable and that they had to like actively like keep her away, like they were giving her space away from Buzzfield, allegedly, and this is just word on the street, that he was already kind of an issue there, on this show called Birds of Paradise, which I might actually make a movie about this, or a video about this, because while Birds of Paradise was being shot in Hawaii, which, where does this connect back to? It's right here. Okay. Birds of Paradise. It was being shot in Hawaii around the same time, pretty much exactly the same time, in the same place, like in and around the same area as this movie North. So while Reiner, Buzzfield, like having a little vacation in Hawaii while doing their movies, because I mean, you got to think some of these locations they write into movies is on purpose, so they have an excuse to write it off and have it be like a little vacation while they're at it, but then it counts as a business expense, right? So this Birds of Paradise, the North movie, okay, and then another, which I'm gonna have to map this on, I'm gonna have to add this in, but there's a lot of connections to it. But we have Iceberg's Jurassic Park in 1994, was being filmed and was in post-production, and they were still doing some scenes, shooting some stuff in and around the same area around the same time. And we've got Seth Green was on that show, Birds of Paradise, and it only lasted like a season. Like, they shot the one season and that was it. Like, it didn't really serve a purpose. So again, it kind of feels to me, in my opinion, more of like a front. Like, okay, let's think of something, let's throw something together so we can be there at the same time. Because Jurassic Park was a huge hit, right? But North is basically one of the worst movies of all time, like based on, I guess, the overall consensus. A lot of people disliked the movie and thought, and he got made fun of for it. Like, they brought it up at the roast that it was awful. That Rob Reiner, North. So not only being a TW Theory movie, it was awful. It was a shit movie. So it's sort of feeling to me maybe a bit, if they'd all wanted to be on the same island at the same time with some of their favorite kids at the time, teens, whoever, because we have Elijah Wood, then we got Seth Green, and then if we circle in Jurassic Park, the kids that were on that movie, there is a good likelihood that they were all hanging out. There might have been some parties. There might have been some get-togethers. We don't know. We don't know for sure. I could be reaching. But the timeline of it is quite compelling. And there having been a rumor about this movie. And so, again, I've left it white. I also haven't had a chance to really check it out. So I'm not even sure if it's TW Theory or has any significance. But the connecting back to Seth Green, which I gotta add a couple more dots in here too. But connecting back to Seth Green, with some of the accusations that have been made in the past, if you've followed the ICAPI, which again, that I wouldn't say he was right about everything, and it's been proven that he wasn't right about everything, but he had made some pretty compelling claims that seem to be lining up with the external investigation I'm doing, and with the reference with the chicken hawk, and if you look into what the coded language, the slang terms, his show Robot Chicken has a whole new meaning, and Cappy's claims involving Seth Green made references to chicken, which is a slang term for little boys, basically. So, make of that what you will. I can't say anything for sure on that. It is just, again, some of this is just opinion-based, pattern-based, and basing on other accusations. So I'm not making the accusation here. But with the coded language, and he was a little older at the time. He was like older teens. And then the amount of younger boys that also happened to be a favorite of this group, wherever it went here, this underground group. Elijah Wood being a favorite And so again, yeah, if you check out those articles, I'm gonna have to link up the newer article that I posted about this. But the common denominators of a lot of these yellow dots, orange dots, and unfortunately the red dots seem to have had a significance to these people. Like, they all seem to be, not these people, sorry, I'm trying to make room here. These people, this group, they had newsletters, they had different forums, and there was enough data within that 500 plus page file stack that I was able to have it select out and tell me what kids were mentioned the most in the media, which movies, so on and so forth, and then why. And when it broke it down to, and it started pointing some stuff out to me that I was like, I'd always felt weird about the Tom and Huck, which I'd mentioned it in a video a while back. I can't remember which one. It might have been like the Bug Hall or the Jake Lloyd. I think it was the Bug Hall video. I had mentioned like that just the Tom and Huck series seemed weird to me. Like there was something iffy about that, and it's part of a developing theory. Well, the TW theory was kind of part of that, and being that there's nothing necessarily sexual in that movie, it was like I can't put my finger on it, but I have started making a list and compiling a list of themes in movies that are questionable. So already we've got the Peter Pan, the Wizard of Oz, the Alice in Wonderland, but beyond that, the Robinson Crusoe, Lord of the Flies, anything like that, the Tom and Huck, movies where kids are lost at sea or on an island, which I actually have to add this one in because somebody just, before I'd hopped on, I saw a comment that somebody was mentioning this movie, Bobby. It's from the 70s, 60s actually, late 60s, 1968, called Robbie, by this guy that's based on, it's a retelling of the Robinson Crusoe, and that ended up being, they were saying that like they caught the first 10-15 movies, minutes of that movie, and it was very heavy TW theory, but then also looking deeper, the director, apparently, I have to double check this myself, but they said that the director of that movie is on a registry list. So, perfect examples of what we're tracking here, and how many of these movies where, like in the Jungle Book, like the live action of the Jungle Book, where they're having to be unclothed, like in various stages of undress for the sake of the movie, like with the Mowgli thing and wearing the little loincloth. And then like the Lord of the Flies, like they're on an island, so they're not wearing a lot, because all their clothes are all messed up or whatever. Then again in like Hook, where they're like the Lost Boys or whatever, and they're not very clothed either. Like their costumes for that movie were in various stages of undress. And then there is a scene that's really troubling where they have the little boys rubbing their hands all over Robin Williams. So it almost kind of makes you wonder with Robin Williams near the end if maybe he was a good guy and he had started noticing stuff over time and was maybe going to say something near the end, because his death always didn't sit right for me. Some people have mixed opinions and mixed thoughts on that, mixed feelings, but the whole thing seemed a little symbolic and a little bit, I don't know, just never sat right with me. And he connects into a ton of other stuff. There's more in here I have to fill in. Like I kind of started 80s, 90s in the center here. And kind of within this sphere and like branching in with the Brittany Murphy stuff really kind of ties in with some stuff here, which also ties in with the Diddy. Like everything that I've been studying here, it all plays into the bigger picture. And ties back to some really compelling groups that, like, we've seen this happen time and time again. Like, the Epstein, the Diddy was not new. The Den Network was, like, and I'm sure there was more before that. And somewhere in between the 90s and the early 2000s, like, these sorts of groups were trying to be accepted. And they did leave some breadcrumbs for us. And, the internet is forever, so I am still finding more little breadcrumbs leading back from people that supported this group. So, like, starting with the Todd Phillips and who he was connected to. And then looking into the publicists, looking into the littler people, the management companies, like Bob Villard, for example, which has been revealing a lot more red dots that seem like it was tried to be buried, but we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back. These kids, it's been decades. Here's another couple new red dots I added. this Blake Heron, with Shiloh, and connecting to Tom and Huck, which connects to Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who dropped off. He just dropped off randomly, and there was not really an explanation there. And then also connecting to Brad Renfro, which is another big red dot that was sort of the early on of this research. Wherever he went, there he is, Brad Renfro. So I've been connecting back a lot more to these other pre-existing red dots and finding other red dots that connect. So just to further highlight that, the Tom and Huck, like, I felt weird about that movie already, and I hadn't uncovered this yet. There was also this movie, like a TV movie they had done that was about a kidnapping about a kid, and they kind of like sensationalized and glorified it in a way, I felt. I didn't really get a chance to check it out yet, like to watch it to know if like really the angle or what it was. But I guess the one guy that was part of doing the movie, he'd gone like undercover looking into the subgroups and like connecting the dots with some of these kinds of people that would have been involved in films that were not just harms and trespasses against kids in one way, like in all the ways, like being more the fetishized kink subsets, because obviously the same way that people, regular adults, have different preferences in viewing material, these people do too, and there's different people that will cater to that per se. And so as I was looking, it kind of seemed like there was more going on here with this guy and the kinds of people connected to him, which, as we covered, he had basically helped finance this movie by doing the artwork for the posters, and they were selling the artwork on posters and whatever, merch, I guess. But the way these people were connected and how this guy was just able to be part of the pipeline and in the industry for decades, going all the way back to the 70s, and time again being put out, released, arrested. Same with Bob Villard. He goes all the way back and literally had been arrested again in 2019. So he'd got out again and then been arrested again in 2019. So like it's still like this is still current. Like he's getting old, but it's still very current to this day. So some people want to be like, oh well, what are we worrying about then? Like let's look at the now, and like with the Nickelodeon stuff right now, and of course that too. Of course, this most recent situation with Kiana, very troubling, and for what that connects to. This I've added in the Tyler Chase situation. You know, these are all very troubling situations. But if anything, I'm trying to humanize and let you guys know, like, maybe there's a reason that all these kids end up with with having troubles in their early adulthood. Late teens, early adulthood. Sometimes going into their late 20s, early 30s. They start to, whatever the trauma anomalies are that they've picked up along the way here, it starts to detonate. And whether it's an implosion or an explosion, that is, I guess, it depends on the person. But as we're filling in more of these circles of prey, predator, lost souls along the way, it's starting to paint a bigger picture. And being that now it's confirmed that some of these big spheres, these big industry giants, were favorites. They were favorites. So whether or not they knew that and they were doing that on purpose, that I could never say for sure. We're going to have to wait and see what comes out in this trial too, the Nick Reiner trial. Because obviously, right from the get-go, we've all been feeling like there's a Menendez brothers, a little bit of a vibe, and the Donnie Darko vibe, which, oddly enough, with the Menendez brothers, I'm glad I put them on here because sure as shit, as I was looking back, Bob Villard, which I think it's connected now, Bob Villard was also like a roadie, and he was a photographer for a lot of the Menudo members and was doing their headshots. So just that plot thickens if not only to highlight what's going on now, but in the past to further support what was going on and why that situation happened. The Menendez brothers situation happened with Jose Menendez. There were allegations with Menudo, the boy band he was managing, and then the thing happened with the Sons, had committed parricide. The one other major Hollywood situation, the parricide situation, both parents, was the Menendez brothers. And sure as shit, it connects right back to the exact same infection. Like, we're starting to find the root causes of the infection here, because we can't cleanse the wound or we can't heal the wound until we cleanse the infection. And we can't just keep putting Band-Aid solutions on it, because obviously for decades and decades and decades, it just keeps on keeping on. And there's a pipeline, Then we have these kids that go through it, and we're likely also a victim with this case, because we had Marty Weiss very closely connected in here, but then becomes a perpetrator, becomes the person that harmed and trespassed against them in their childhood. And then we're seeing like that repeating pattern, almost with the Drake Bell situation, which we're going to touch on this more, I think, because there is still like a lot going on in the background with that, and he's trying to get help and trying to break the cycle and do the right thing. And I think that there is value in that, and we need to highlight that, because he could have very easily just gone straight to a pink circle and just become another problem going on and on for decades to come. But he stopped. He was huffing balloons outside of a high school and had a situation where he was talking to somebody he shouldn't have been. And that's as far as it got. And then he realized, he got in trouble for that, for sure, obviously. He got the help for the rehab thing, but he also is seeking and getting help and owning it, taking accountability. So I think we do need to give credit for that, to break the cycle, because of course what he's done is wrong. And of course, we're not minimizing the victim in that situation and what their experience was. But I think we need more people that if you're an orange dot, get help. If you're an orange dot that might become a pink dot or a blue dot, go get help. Because it's okay you're an orange dot. We can talk about that now. It's not, an isolated circumstance where a lot of these orange dots felt that it was an isolated situation and that they had done something wrong and were singled out, and they had done something to invite it in, or had done something wrong to create that situation, or something their parents did, or whatever. When in reality, it's one great big pipeline. It's all part of one great big pipeline where you've got people that are part of these sorts of subsects, subgroups, and on both sides. But I think the male side is less highlighted because, there's such a stigma in society about them even being victims. They're not allowed to be victims. They got to man up and just forget the past and da-da-da-da-da. And so there's far less reporting, and there's a lot higher rate of them becoming red dots. Like, we can't deny that. We know that statistically. We can see it with our eyeballs. Most of these red dots are young men who just, in their early childhood or in their teens, something happened and it affected them as they went into adulthood. So I kind of try to highlight that side of it more. But as we're going along, we are highlighting some of the TW Theory movies that affected both sides, because it doesn't really see a gender. These sick kind of people, it's like their kids are kids are kids. It doesn't matter what their interest was. If they're into kids, that's the friggin' problem. And the less that we're dividing it and the less that we're trying to put it into different little categories, the better. Because trauma overall, when you have trauma as a kid, a lot of the same shit happens when you go into adulthood. It's a lot of the same struggles, a lot of mental unwellness and anxiety, depression, all this stuff, self-medication. The root cause is trauma, and if we can start highlighting and normalizing that kind of conversation and having a little more empathy for these orange dots rather than mocking them and making fun of them, like with the Justin Bieber situation. He's teetering, and we don't need him to become an Aaron Carter. He walked in his footsteps in one way, but he doesn't have to walk all the way in his footsteps. We're starting to see a lot of the same pattern, him kind of crashing out on live streams and having a bit of a time. But can we just keep him an orange dot? He doesn't need to become a red dot like Liam Payne and Aaron Carter and all these other young men that are, now young men that as kids were harmed or trespassed upon or had some other weird stuff happening. Because Aaron Carter was in close proximity to the whole Disney sphere. He was exposed to Brian Peck too. And it's not always such an isolated incident. People are like, with the Corey Haim thing, oh, it wasn't this guy, it was that guy. Oh, it was the other guy. Oh, no, it was Alfie Hoffman. Or, oh, no, it was, you know what I mean? But has it ever occurred that all of those people are preying on these kids all at once? That everywhere they turn, like how Elijah Wood has said, how Corey Feldman has said, that has it occurred to anybody that they're literally surrounded, and everywhere they turn, they think it's a safe person, but if anything, they're literally just trying to groom them. That any kindness or compassion or hearing them out or taking them somewhere cool, that all of that is part of the grooming process, that these people laid out very clearly in their newsletters of how it's supposed to be done so that it's a loving thing and not a forced trespass, and that's their justification for doing it. But none of that is a justification. None of that is okay. And that's kind of the point that we're trying to make here overall, I guess, is the main thing here. That none of this is okay. It doesn't matter if it was forced or not. And for any victims that feel that they were a complicit or that it was a consensual thing and they're not a victim, if you're a child, you cannot consent. So there's the situation with Corey Haim, where Charlie Sheen, it very much seems like, in my opinion, and just based on what I've gathered and in my research and having done the Charlie Sheen documentary years ago, that I literally was trying to highlight a lot of this, a lot of these blue dot clusters and a lot of the stuff that was going on there, because himself being a victim as well, based on what he grew up around and who he grew up around, and he's just right in the cluster. But I think, you know, at this point, for the people that he aligns with, how many blue dots until it goes from coincidence to suspicious, you know? But we can argue that he was also a victim in his childhood. So, I mean, to decide what color he ends up being, it's so complicated. It really, you don't know. And there is no, like, we will never know. Like, Corey Haim's no longer with us. There was never any lawsuit or anything. But the way that it seems that Corey Haim has framed it, or that Charlie Sheen's framed it in his mind, is that it was not a forced trespass. They were fooling around. It was consensual. And he's admitted to, like, having an interest in men and there being, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just kind of putting it together here. That he felt that it was consensual and it's not how they're painting it in the media. Well, regardless if Corey Haim felt that he was a willing participant or not, he was 13. Charlie Sheen would have been 19. Corey Haim could not consent. Corey Haim would not have known the impact that would have had on him later. You know what I mean? So we don't know for sure. And again, like I said, we'll maybe never know for sure, because Charlie Sheen spoke up and spoke his piece of, like, that it's all bullshit. It wasn't a forced trespass. Okay, I agree. I don't think it was a forced trespass either. I agree. I think there was a lot going on that was normalized around these young men that were led to believe that this was all normal, in the same way that it was for Charlie Sheen and for, like, Leonardo DiCaprio, for people, like, all these age gap relationships you see, where at least they're between adults, you know, in the very least, it's between adults, because when you get down to it, there are people that are not, like, doing what Leonardo DiCaprio is doing. They're Leo's age, but then going after children, you know. So that's something we need to focus on a little more and not worry so much about what Leo's doing with his 25-year-old girlfriend this year, you know, whatever one it is this year. Again, it's still weird. It's still not really okay. It's still questionable. But, you know, that's not as questionable as, like, with Paul Walker and who he was dating. That, you know, that all kind of got scrubbed, and it was all a tragedy that he died young, and that whole situation's still kind of suspicious. I got to throw him on somewhere here. It's still kind of suspicious. I'm going to just throw him in here for now to just remember for later. Still suspicious, still a weird situation, but he was right in it like a dirty shirt with how the age gap thing was normalized and what he was doing. So again, like, we need to break the cycle. People need to start taking more accountability. People that are running the movies need to be more accountable. If kids are harmed on the set, like, I'm starting to, like, why was Castle Rock and Rob Reiner not brought into question when somebody on his movie was allegedly, well, she was, like, it was proven in court, he lost the defamation lawsuit, he paid a settlement. So this young person on this movie was trespassed upon, and the movie was produced by Castle Rock Entertainment, Rob Reiner's Castle Rock Entertainment. So why was Rob Reiner not held responsible also for that? Why was that not a big thing for him? Why are we allowing somebody to be the dirty hands? Because whether or not you're involved in it, whether or not you're complicit or a participant in that, or, like, knowingly allowing it, like, you should be held accountable, regardless of if you had no idea, regardless of plausible deniability. If that's your movie, that's your set, that's your production company, those kids on that set are your responsibility. And if you haven't put the right people in place to protect those kids, that's your responsibility. You were in charge. Overall, in charge. So now I'd like to know who's in charge right here. when they work together, Castle Rock Entertainment, to bring back Misery to the children's theater that's also a non-for-profit and does things for youth, disadvantaged youth, which are already so vulnerable, and many of them already victims of harm and trespasses. So already that much more vulnerable to somebody that's going to be like, oh, come over here, I'll be your friend, we'll get you in the business, I got connections, we'll get you jobs on movies. And then when that person starts preying on that kid, like everywhere they turn, they're just a vulnerable piece of meat. Like the way that this Michael Egan kid had spoken about, where is it? Or he's a young man now, but when he was a kid, how he was treated and passed around within this sphere, this whole sphere. And there's so many more. Like, I'm having to figure out how to work all of them in, because there were accusations against a lot of these people through that time. But it was kind of all separated, and a lot of the bigger investors and the bigger named people got off scot-free. And it's a messy situation. And that's just the way a lot of these little counter or these subculture groups operate. And there's these little spheres, and they've got different people involved, because it's got to be like an organized group, you know, like this isn't, you know, we're not just talking about drug dealing here. This is a whole nother thing. And then trying to do it under the guise of, oh, it's a show, oh, it's a movie, oh, it's a great opportunity for your career or whatever, you know what I mean? Or fashion, you know, as we're digging deeper into the whole Trump scene of it all. Like this Casablancas guy, I posted some stuff about him, and he had sent his daughter to him, and this guy was like a known predator, and he had sent his daughter to him. just like, you know, the pipeline is like, even your family's not safe, depending on how you're trying to feed into that pipeline. And then there's connections between that and the Epstein stuff too. Like there's even more compelling connections to make all in between here in the Trump and the Epstein. But we're going to get into that more Friday. But as we're filling in more of these blanks and making more of these connections, it is quite compelling. And as we're becoming a little more aware of how these groups work and what interests them, because it's not just, you know, with Dan Schneider and the feet stuff, like it's not just the TW theory stuff. There's movies that they prefer that are to groom your kids, you know what I mean? And when you consider that like 60 to 70% of the time, it's somebody from within the home or close to the family that's trespassed against a kid, this is the tools that you guys need to better protect your own kids, to better protect kids in your community, you know, to keep an eye out and be able to see more of these little, the subtle nuances, I guess you could say, when it comes to these subgroups and all the steps that are being taken ahead of there being a harm or trespass. Like, there's so much more to it. And, you know, if you can start getting a list of, like, you know, things to look out for that way that is a little more definite, you know, like to notice in the media, to notice, you know, you've got somebody up the street that's, I don't know, like, I don't know how we're going to apply all this information just yet, but there is a common denominator of truth, and there are lists of movies and lists of things that we know for sure that's what they're interested in. So it's really just starting to decide and figure out if these people knew whether or not that they were catering to those people by making movies like this, and then why there happens to be so many red dots associated. Right? Like, we're following the red brick road. It's starting to make more sense. And along the way, I think that it is all valuable information to understand that the non-sexual things too. Like, obviously there's weird stuff in these movies that's kind of says something about those who have made the movies and who are all part of those movies, especially when it's not only a TD Theory movie, but then it's connected to really shady people. This guy, this Jared Mullen guy, I don't know, I'm starting to be a little bit questioning about him. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to keep looking, but he keeps popping up on TW Theory movies. And this movie, we know, Bug Hall has talked about, this was the first movie he was trespassed upon, and it followed him from different movies, set to set, for a particular company. And so now, as we're narrowing that down, we're kind of narrowing down other people that are probably potential victims too. And when they're having their breakdown and they're having legal issues or they're having issues with self-medication, like the Zach Ty Bryant guy, Where is he? I put him in here somewhere. There he is. This home improvement and what it connects to and the troubles he's having and the fact that Jonathan Taylor Thomas quit, and not saying it was anything with home improvement, but knowing the pipeline, now that this guy, he's got like 6 arrests in the past 5 years or something like that, or 5 arrests in the past 6 years, something like that. But he was likely trespassed upon somewhere along the way within this pipeline, you know, and as I connect back more things between some of these movies, some of these kids that just quit after a certain movie and after a certain thing, you know, I'm starting to get the inkling that some of these kids were a victim, and that's why they quit the industry, which is too bad. It's too bad that you have to trade your soul to do something you love, you know. Or in other cases, I guess the parents have kind of forced the kid into it, so it's a different thing. And by the time they become an adult, they're like, no, I don't want this. But in a lot of cases, it's because something has happened and they've become like it breaks the spell of the yellow brick road, and because now they're on the red brick road. You know, they're another red brick in the road. Or an orange brick or a yellow brick or whatever, you know, but the different way, as in whistleblower, or they're not sure they're a victim, but like with Elijah Wood, he swears up and down he wasn't a victim, but when you start to think about some of the scenes and some of the movies they had him in, and what these people are into, and what kind of imagery and themes they're going for just for in their own personal use, and in doing the whole the grooming process, you know, it starts to highlight that, you know, whether he knows it or not, in some ways he is a victim too, in a way, you know, and not in a physical way per se, but just being in some of these movies, we know some of these kids have talked about, like later on as adults, have talked about how that impacted them, or it had attracted an unwanted audience, an unwanted fan base, like Natalie Portman has talked about. Certain movies had attracted a certain fan base that she didn't ask for, you know, but the people in charge of those movies and her parents who allowed it, like, or chose not to be present enough for it, or weren't allowed to be present enough, and then didn't decide to just pull their kid off the fucking movie, which I guess it gets tough when there's contracts and when there's other stuff involved. But this is where we're starting to figure out the common denominators of truth that have led to a lot of these orange and red dots. And until we completely identify and are able to detect the infection, we're not going to be able to cleanse it and eradicate it. So here we are, starting to get there. And also, okay, yeah, let's get back to the Reiner thing. The Michelle Reiner, I forgot, sorry. The Michelle Reiner connects directly to Trump. She did the photography for the Art of the Deal. And a lot of people are thinking, like, it's political sides and they want to point fingers one way or the other. But, like, Trump played both sides. He was both political parties at one point. Like he flip-flopped at certain points, and he was in a lot of movies, and when we're starting to look at his whole overall connections and stuff too, and like going into the fashion industry, like that's why the fashion modeling, all that's not on there, the pageant industry, like we're going deep, guys, we're going freaking deep, and nobody is safe. I don't care what religion, I don't care what political party, I don't care what nice charitable bullshit you've done to paint yourself as some whatever. You're not safe. If you are, you know, 1 or 2 degrees away from 3 or 4 predators, is it a coincidence or is it suspicious? How many of these guys, you know, and like that you knew, like he wants to say he distanced himself from Epstein, but like how about this guy that he knew in 2003 had served jail time, and again in 2018 had an issue, but was still part of this whole ecosystem because it was connected to the money. This is sort of also the yellow brick road, I guess, in a way, but they all run parallel in a way. It all runs together, right? So how many predators, spiritual advisors, political connections, friends, family, whatever, how many of these do you need for it to be suspicious, you know? So we're going to go into that a little more on Friday. I think I set it up for Friday. It's already set. I don't know exactly when. We're going to, I don't know. I might push it back a bit too, because it has been so dark and so crazy going down all this rabbit holes, and the realizations and some of the missing links being made with just like how it all connects back to stuff like this Bridget Anderson, another one that somebody had mentioned, and I was like, oh yeah, like we do need to start getting into these older spheres, and that's like I have to dig out a list. I have a list of lost souls somewhere that I had been compiling years ago to do something with, and I was kind of sprinkling them along the way in my documentaries, like under the guise of a bio movie, like a dark Hollywood bio about Charlie Sheen. I was sprinkling in a lot of these red dots and these other connections, and especially the Drew Barrymore. She's kind of like a hub to a lot of darkness. That she was surrounded by darkness, so no wonder she was, heavy narcotics by teens, and the same pipeline, exact same thing, kind of as Reiner was going through. Nick Reiner, that is, sorry. So there's a lot more to connect in there. And yeah, I don't know. It's just that how everything's starting to connect back and make a little more sense to the decade almost, or I guess at least several years that I've been really dedicated to this study and research, and like amplifying that with, studying in the psychology of it all. Like I've got textbooks for courses I will never take, but to understand the abnormal and forensic psychology of it all, the personality disorders, the dark triad, the McDonald triad, all the signs and indicators of trauma and the different kinds of trauma. I've been doing all this study all these years, and it's starting to all come together. Because this is all right out in the world stage. This is all the yellow brick road, but if we start looking at the red brick road, it helps us better understand society at large, the masses. Because a lot of the industry is just a mirroring of society, or a cause of some issues in society, where we have the hypersexualization of teens, and we have, these other pipelines that feed into the music industry or feed into the fashion industry or whatever, right? Or this kind of industry where they're distributing and creating harm material, like this kid over here. Like that's a whole continuing pipeline that just goes on and on and on. It's just passing the torch of corruption, right? So if we can start to better understand who these people really are, then people can also make more informed decisions about who they're choosing to idolize and celebrate. Because I guess we can't really stop people from doing that, like I don't believe in that, and I think that it's weird. I don't understand it. But we can't stop people from doing that, and I'm not going to judge people that want to idolize or celebrate certain characters or people, but you got to remember they're playing a character in a movie, and as much as you like that character in a movie, it's not representative of the person playing that part. We really need to start looking at it objectively and reasonably, logically, of who these wonderful Wizards of Oz actually are behind the scenes. And then especially in relation to this, minefield. It's like a battlefield. Like, the amount of casualties. Like, being a child actor is a battlefield. Being a child descendant in this sphere is a battlefield. Like, no wonder he looked shell-shocked. Like, notice I've been using the words shell-shocked the whole time. To describe how he looked as a child. Like, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's generally only something that was suffered by veterans that had seen the arms and legs getting blown off kids. You know what I mean? Like, there's different kinds of trauma and harm that are happening all around us, all the time, to kids that are doing the same kind of damage as somebody on a literal battlefield. Do you know what I mean? So what does that tell you? Like, what does that alone tell you, right? So as we're digging in deeper and following these connections down, I mean, it just seems like our initial, like, for you, those of you that have been following from the beginning, and a lot of you guys were agreeing, which is such a great group. We've got such a good tribe here of people that understand the trauma anomalies and understand, that are trauma informed, I guess, in a sense, that understand what's going on here and have been feeling the same way about this Nick Reiner situation, that it's, that something else is going on there, that he showed all the signs and indicators of something really awful going on. And beyond Rob even himself saying that everyone in jail for a violent crime, and even including, like, he went on a whole campaign, but including people with substance abuse disorders, people, poverty, like teen pregnancy, all this stuff, he said, like, because somebody had a nightmare childhood. Like, if you're in jail for a violent, like, the quote is, everyone in jail for a violent, like, the one main quote I've been leaning on is, everyone in jail for a violent crime had a nightmare childhood. So what kind of childhood would you need to have that to cause you to end the lives of your parents, right? And the only other time we saw that was the Menendez brothers situation, really, for the most part, in this sphere, in the industry sphere. So it really begs the question of what was really going on in this household. And when you consider some of the covert, inappropriate familial interactions and the kind of jokes they were making, like when you watch the Rob Reiner roast stuff, and some of the other people connected that have had accusations or allegations made against them, all of the kids, like just the fact that the TW theory, I was a developing theory that I'd first published early November, and River Phoenix and Stand By Me being one of the most disturbing examples of that theory, to mid-December, the whole Nick Reiner thing happening, like, you know, all these little puzzle pieces are starting to come together, and I think the foundations of the evil powers that be that are supporting these people, that are allowing these kinds of people to continue to work in the industry, like, we got to think about that. How come these people keep getting caught and then are still able to work in the industry closely to children? Who is allowing that? Like, who is responsible for that? Like, are these people not responsible if they're going to have a set with kids on a set, that they have to vet these people and know what kind of history they have? Like, they can't use that plausible deniability anymore because everything's online. You can search the shit up. It's easy. So how do these people keep getting work? How are they still working on sets that might, like, whether the set that they're working on in particular has kids on it or not? A lot of these movie sets and shows, video, like TV show sets, are adjacent to other sets in a studio. Like, there's other shows going on. So maybe they're not working like this. While he was working with anger management with Charlie Sheen, maybe there wasn't kids on that set. But who's to say they're not kids coming out in and out of that studio, or even that complex of studios? Because when you look, a lot of these studios are in clusters. They're all kind of tied into each other. When you start looking at the connections between, like, certain production companies and certain studios, you know, it starts to be less of a coincidence and more like a suspicious arrangement. Like, they know exactly what they're doing and why, and it's part of another pipeline that, if anything, the glitz and the glam and the TV shows and the movies, a lot of it is a front. Some of it is good, some of it's art, some of it's artists, film artists trying to make art, you know, or actresses that believe that it's an art form, you know, talented people, singers, dancers, all these people that just want to do what they're passionate about and what they feel is their purpose. And then if their entry to that, though, is being part of a sick pipeline of a system, you know, like, that needs to change. People need to stop having their passion and purpose used against them to be exploited or made vulnerable or manipulated or, you know, enslaved in a way. Like, when you look at the Britney Spears situation, or, you know, being used and abused and then chewed up and spit out, and when they're not young anymore, like, this is why a lot of these child stars have issues and troubles getting into an adult career path, because they never really actually got the training. They weren't really doing movies and acting. They were being put in positions that they were facing trauma and or being put in precarious scenes and being objectified, and they weren't actually learning at these acting schools or these children's learning training schools or whatever, like all these little places that people can send their kids to learn to be in the industry. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's you know, and not to say that some of them aren't talented and learning talents along the way, but it starts to make you wonder why they stop being, if they're, you know what I mean? Like, where one career begins and another ends, and maybe they're not given the support and given the tools to go into the next stage because they were not as complicit in these early stages, you know? Then there's the anomalies, like Elijah Wood. Like, he sort of managed to flip around and continue to go without feeling that he was a victim. But when you consider how young he looks for his age, and you consider some of the TW Theory movies, which this radio flyer is also really weird. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm not 100%, but I'm just gathering information too, just from, like, these files that luckily I don't have to traumatize myself and go through them. Thank goodness for the AI. Like, AI is a gift and a curse. It's so bad in such a way, but the fact that I'm able to take all these files, all these like zip files, whatever it is, from these FBI government sites, whatever, that have files already on these people, like, they've done the legwork, and I can just punch it in and be like, can you extract for me this information? Can we make these connections? Like, it knows kind of what I'm looking for, because I've been training this AI tool assistant for like over a year now. It's very like eyes wide open with me, you know what I mean? So it knows what we're doing, and it's in on these projects. Like I'm able to organize stuff and put it in such a way that it's a shield for me, that I'm not having to traumatize myself so much in doing this research, because used to be I'd be going through all those files, and then it would take weeks and weeks and weeks to even come to the conclusion of that follow-up article I did, the NAMBLA article that I did. And going back to the South Park, like I want to know what Matt Stone and Trey Parker know, because they've been one sec, just gonna turn this fan off. They've been dropping truth bombs in their stuff in that show for a long time, and now I kind of know why I liked it. Like going back and rewatching stuff and how much it's coming into play now. Like they were planting seeds for us the whole time, because they did do an episode about NAMBLA, and I was like, I already kind of knew about these people. It was already in the back of my mind the whole time, because I was aware I'd seen that episode, but I had never really connected that. But it somehow all that information was in my brain somewhere to lead into this whole TW theory journey, and like what I'd been doing with a lot of these documentaries and, you know, side videos. Like I started the Dark Child Star Nexus videos, like, and you can notice that some of them, the system let them be public, you know, it let it out to the general audience. But when you look at the Bug Hall video and the Jake Lloyd video, how heavily suppressed those videos are, and actually just watch them. I wouldn't recommend watching them, because they are very much explaining a lot of the other connections within this sphere that I haven't been able to add in yet, that I've been making room. As you can see, I've been organizing and making space to add in more stuff here. Those videos are very revealing of some things that have to do with this whole map, to do with the main iceberg and these guys, this situation down here, wherever it went, and this company, like this big company. And as we were talking about within in the last stream too, of how maybe some of these companies are very successful at what they're doing because they know how to entice children, that the benefit of them having predators in their sphere is because when they're making kids material, like with Alice in Wonderland, how that story was made and made up by Charles Dodgson, which his pen name is Lewis Carroll, but the guy that wrote Alice in Wonderland, he was making that story to entice the child that he had fallen in love with, and was trying to take on little outings, and would leave them, these stories would leave them on cliffhangers, so the kids and even the siblings, but he was kind of zeroing in on the one kid, but he needed to gain trust of the kids and the family and everybody, right? So he was telling this story that would leave it on a cliffhanger, so the kids would want to come rushing back and hear more about the story. And so then the kids tell the parents about the stories and how great they are, and the parents are like, you should publish that. So he publishes it, and that gives him access to thousands of kids, people willing to just hand him their kids because he's the wonderful Wizard of Oz that wrote such a wonderful story. And he would have them on overnights, and he was writing love letters to them for years, and it's very well documented, and photographing them in the nude, like, and I guess it was just more acceptable back then too, so they weren't very, like, he didn't have to hide it, I guess. But those are breadcrumbs on this brick road, on the yellow and red brick road, that point to like highlight something, because then that Alice in Wonderland is one of the most reproduced literary items, literature material of all time. Like, it's been made into so many stage plays, different movies, different ways of doing it too. Like, the way that they've told the story is different, you know, there's different variations of it. And then when you look at, like, with the Peter Pan and that same situation, but with little boys, and who loves Peter Pan and who's doing weird movies about Peter Pan, you know, that whole intersection in there, there's a lot of, it says something, you know. And I can't make any accusations, I can't say anything for certain about any of this, but based on what we know historically, psychologically, what we can see with our own eyeballs, because I mean, look at, when you start, like, this is just the beginning, but when you see how many red dots and orange dots and blue dots, I'm starting to put in the pink dots, so there'll be a lot more soon, but I've just started by mapping these people for now. And you see how many blue dots, like, let me, like, blue, red, orange, like, you can see it. Like, this is undeniable. This is undeniable that there is a fucking issue here. There is a fucking issue here, you know? And we need to do something about it. I don't know how much more clear we can make it for people to get it. Like, we've had people screaming it at the top of their lungs for years. Like, Elijah Wood's been talking about it for years. Corey Feldman, you know, Todd Bridges, Nathan Forrest Winters, this guy that I reference a lot as a main example, Nathan Forrest Winters. You know, a lot of kids have been trying, or now adults, but trying to speak out in protection of the kids for decades. And nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to believe that it was such a problem. Do we believe it now? Do we see it now? Like, can we see it now? Does this make it clear enough? How much more clear? Like, you know, I guess is the main thing here. You know, and when we have this many connections, this many allegations, it kind of heightens the likelihood that this guy currently is guilty of what he's being accused of, you know. And with the stuff with the wife, there's some weird stuff with the wife. She had posted a ton of weird stuff on her Instagram that she ended up wiping when the warrant was put out for his arrest, and it just makes you wonder, like, and she's so supporting him right now that it's just like, it's churning my stomach. And the amount of kids they've had access to, just local kids that are just trying to get into theater, the entry level, and having that pipeline between two major industry giants. Yeah. Oh, I've got to reconnect this back. This connects to Buzzfield too. I was moving stuff around and trying to organize and fit everything. This connects to. Hold on. This was basically given to him. This was a show given to him because he basically got away with, like, I don't know, maybe that's a stretch, but he got away with 1994, what happened in 1994 with Little Big League, and then had this guy hand him his show that he made with his friends. He hands him a show, basically, like he's a star of the show and it's whatever he wanted for the show, hands him the show in cooperation with his really good buddies over here that he did DreamWorks with, this guy, and this David Geffen guy. And this David Geffen guy happened to be one of the early investors in the P3DO den that connects to all of this rot, all of this infection, all of these red dots, you know? So how come we're 2 degrees of separation? How come you are 2 degrees of separation away from crimes against boys? And whoever, people like Drew had a lot of issues that we gotta wonder about what was going on there. Not making an accusation. And also I'm not promoting any hate or violence or witch hunting or anything. We're just observing. We're making educated observations. But why would he hand him a show after that? Why would he want to be associated with that? And then why is your friend also contributing to the boys situation? And then, like, are these just like a distraction? Because the current accusation is 2 twin boys that seem to fit in with this pipeline that we've been observing. So is it a job or a preference? Is it, like, I don't know. This is where we're making it a group discussion now because, fuck, hour and a half in, there's the introduction presentation for this evening. I should catch up with the chat here. I'm so sorry, guys. And I maybe should have put it on slow mode and should have been paying a little more attention, but I think you guys are following along. And I don't want to get too caught up in arguing in the chat either or going one way or the other. Like, I want to be able to get the full presentation out and then chat with you guys a bit. But I think keeping these linear and concise, because it is so much information and it is a lot to cover, and that, you know, like, obviously this is all the stuff that's been right in front of our face the whole time that we didn't really have the language for or the understanding for yet, or the technology to even put it together and make it make sense, you know? Are you guys arguing in the chat? What movie? What are you guys saying? Can we not be arguing in the chat? Do I need to add rules and regulations? I think we're all adults here. We could be nice. We don't need to argue. Everyone has a different perspective. And as long as we all agree that children should not be harmed or trespassed upon, we'll be good, right? Yeah, Mark Twain had sus child situation. And yeah. Yeah, you get it, Finisher. You guys get it. The Treasure Island. Yep. You guys are getting it. Yeah, the Robin Williams situation for sure. You guys know. Yeah, Savannah Smiles. Yeah, that's what connects to. And that movie's a little weird. There's something kind of weird there. I don't know. I got to read into it more. But she is on the list. She was on a list. I have to pull out the list of other red dots and where they all fit into here. Because these are a lot of these now that I've been adding are ones I'm coming across while exploring some of these other TW Theory movies and some of these other questionable connections. But there's still a whole list that are not on here yet. Like, at least There was like 100 of them. So out of that, there's these ones are on here that I know of, but there's so many more. There's so many more, and we're going back in eras too. Like we kind of started in the 80s and 90s that I knew of my childhood growing up, in early 2000s. But now we're starting to branch out into the 70s, 60s. That Robbie movie, which I got to throw in here. I think I popped it in there somewhere. I'll have to connect that in and put more information for that one. But then there's a trail, there's a breadcrumb trail, and then how many of these people ended up with a record, and comparing the material that they're doing in their films versus what it is that they're getting in trouble for, versus seeing those same patterns in the TW theory is the developing theory of those patterns that we're noticing, It's all part of it. It's all part of it. So it is. It is. And it does ruin a lot of childhood stuff. Oh my god. Oh my god, is Big on the map. Yeah, the movie Big? Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's on here somewhere too. Which I've got to fill that out more. Because that connects directly to his ex, to Reiner's ex-wife, Penny Marshall. Which is a pretty big, compelling connection. Like, they were all kind of couples friends before. And then there's the Chet Hanks situation, which is like 3 or 4 steps away from becoming a Reiner situation, in my opinion, for how they treat him. And how he's sort of the odd one out. He's the black sheep of that situation. So that's all on here. But Hanks goes like on 2 sides of the map here. Because there was different eras where he was really into this circle before. And then he started working a lot down here with a couple companies down here. So I'm going to have to figure out how to connect all that together. And we'll get there. We will get there. Interview with a Vampire. Yeah, like the vampire themes are weird. Which, like, look at Twilight. How many kids was that grooming into early sexuality that they didn't need to be thinking about with those movies? Like the Twilight. Why do we need so many themes of sex and sexuality in stuff geared to early teens? Or, they don't need to be forced into prepubescence or whatever, into pubescence. They're going to get there either way, you know what I mean? So, when you think about the different themes of, like, having to be in love and fall in love and getting married and la-da-da, all this stuff, so early on, like, the Twilight is literally just about, like, it's a love story. It's not really about vampires or werewolves or any of that shit. It's just another early coming of age grooming type material dressed up as a vampire thing, But then when you think of the themes of vampire and what that is and the consuming, and then when you get into more of these kinds of people over here, that are into that kind of thing on a different level, like there's different degrees of evil, and there's, let's laugh and make fun, and then, it's like teehee vampires, it's this imaginary fantasy thing, but then there's like real people that believe in consuming the fluids out of bodies, and stuff, the Dahmer of it all, and the John Wayne Gacy of it all, which, that's a whole other map. That would be a whole other map for a whole other day, I think. And that might be impossible to really, like, add into all this. But there are crossovers, too, of, like, with how John Wayne Gacy is connected into all of this. And where it leads back through the ages, like, following the history of it all. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, unfortunately, many who are harmed repeat the behaviors. Yeah, unfortunately. So we need to break that cycle. Like, this is where being more informed and noticing the patterns, noticing the ways, and better understanding how the grooming happens, because not often is it a forced trespass when it comes to crimes against children. Very often it's a grooming process, and it's somebody close to the family or somebody they thought they trusted. Like, these kids were calling Timothy Buzzfield Uncle Tim, and the wife, like, they were going to functions together. Like, the wife had bought them gifts, had bought the kids Christmas gifts, and they were, like, welcoming them into the family. So if they were, in fact, then trespassed upon, like, think about the trust level and the manipulation that went into that for both the parents and the children to allow that to happen. And that's not within the family. That's just kind of an external thing. It's like an extracurricular activity thing, like but this stuff happens within families too, and I think a lot of families protect predators because they don't want to believe what's going on until it's too late. Like, they don't see or want to see the red flags or see what's going on until the harm has happened, and then they're reactive to the harm. And then in some cases, they don't even react to the harm. They end up still protecting the predator. You know, and I think that a lot of these predators rely on that, and they really build themselves up to be really family-friendly, experts on parenting type people, thinking to all these videos of parenting expertise this guy had, and then yet is surrounded by, you know, and is a favorite of, like, whether you know it or not, dude, you weren't the expert on parenting advice, you know, with what's now come into play later. Yeah, the infections. It's an infection. It's a brain infection. That's the disease. Like, they want to talk about self-medicating being the disease, like addiction's the disease, and you're powerless to addiction. No. Society is powerless to those causing the trauma. Like, the system has been built to protect abusers and silence and conceal victims. And if anything, it's a good thing for them. Like, how convenient that they implode and self-destruct by a certain point, by the time they start coming to terms with it, that they self-destruct. How convenient, instead of being able to get on feet and come out and say stuff about it the way, like, Bug Hall was able to. And maybe the strength of that was watching so many of his colleagues and peers and friends dropping around him and realizing, like, no, like, I can't repeat this. Watching his friend Brad Redfro, that he looked up to, that he felt like nobody could fuck with Brad. Like, he's got the attitude, and I aspire to be more tough like him, and he started being more tough like him. But then he dies too. And Bug Hall starts to realize, like, even putting on the tough front doesn't protect you. It didn't make him safe. That he was likely also a victim, you know? So we got to start figuring it out, and we got to do something about it, because keeping the silence and having these people implode and self-destruct, and this is in society too, having them homeless and drug addicts on the street instead of revealing whatever fuck shit happened in their family, is very convenient for that narcissistic cult family trying to protect their image and pretend like everything's okay, and that there isn't one of these people in their family. You know what I mean? Like, how many people come from families, you know, like, it's getting to a sick rate, because the child trafficking industry is just getting bigger. We're just seeing more and more of these people dropping dead left and right in the industry. Like, it's at a more alarming rate now that there's different spheres of the industry and different forms of fame and fortune that can be obtained by the more average people just from the comfort of their home, you know? Like, there's so much more going on now that if we don't figure this out, like, we're screwed. We're screwed. Cher is on here. Sonny's not yet, but he's connected to a movie that I need to connect into 3 or 4 different things. So definitely those are big hubs. Like, people that are a big hub, if you don't see them on here yet, it's because they connect to so many things, and I'm in the process of reorganizing and finding room, because it's just, like, it's getting complicated. Like, obviously over here I've made some room and I've organized it so it doesn't seem so chaotic, but then you go look over here, it's getting chaotic. So I'm gonna have to make a couple more nodes and make a couple more different connections and organize and tidy this up a little more, because otherwise it just looks like craziness. Like, it's almost trauma for the eyeballs just looking at it right now. So I'm gonna have to move more stuff and organize more stuff before I'm able to fit too much more in the sphere here. Cher is more on the outside, though. I highlighted her movie Mermaids, and that was Christina Ricci's first movie, and she's been in some weird movies. But then this is where the music and the people start crossing over, like Cher, Madonna. I got to connect Britney Spears back in over here somewhere, because she's at the top of the music industry, but she also crossed over and worked with this person. This Tamara Davis had done her movie Crossroads, and then also this really extreme TW Theory movie. So it's just it's a compelling connection that it doesn't really mean anything. I don't know what it means. It's just an interesting connection. And then people can decide. People can decide what they want to think about it. I'm not going to tell anybody what to think. I'm going to tell you what to think, that what these people are, like, things that we know for definitively. If it is 100% fact, I'm going to tell you, yes, we should be suspicious of these people for what their beliefs are involving children. Okay, that's a for sure. That I can say for sure. But a lot of the other stuff, it's up to you. You decide. You do your own research. There's 1,000 rabbit holes to follow down here as we're going along. And so just pick one and do your own investigating, because it's so easy to just read a headline and regurgitate. But oftentimes there's a lot of stuff in between that gets left out, and we should be more aware of all that too. So when these kids are having problems, when Tyler Chase is homeless and everyone thinks they're trying to help him and they don't understand how to help him and why maybe he doesn't want to accept the help involving his family, there's a lot of other things going on in between that we really need to understand as a society so we can be treating these people better. Like, we've got all these kids, these people that sacrifice their childhood so we could enjoy our childhood. And even still, like, a lot of us weren't enjoying our childhood either, with or without the entertaining content or whatever. But so a lot of these people had to sacrifice their childhood so we could enjoy ours. And as latchkey kids especially, for those of us that are latchkey kids, I know we've got different generations in here, but if anything, the latchkey kids owe them the most. Because what else the fuck would we have been doing? We've been getting into trouble and causing ruckus. And we had all these kids giving up their childhood for us. So, yeah. The Greek mythology is another. I included some of it in that newer article, which I think it should be actually available to everyone now. I do make some stuff early access to paid members because, I want to offer you guys something, and I don't want to be just having you guys donating or whatever. But obviously, it's, there is a fluctuation, and there's no incentive in telling the truth. And obviously, you face a lot of different kinds of attacks and different things. So I do have to have some way of balancing and being able to cover my bases here. But I do want all the information to be free to everybody. So the TW Theory article is already free. The updated article, the NAMBLA, it might be free now. It might not be just yet. I'll post it. I'll double check after the stream and I'll post it if it's ready for everyone. But check those out too, because I do go into more of the theme of the movies, like the Tom and Huck. And then, like, these kinds of movies, the kids that are, like, struggling with a health problem needs to go on that list too. I kind of started the list in that one. There's a few more that I've come up with now since I posted that last article. So I'm going to be updating those articles and connect them together because they're kind of branching out, and I want to make it as understandable for as many people as possible. Like, for a general audience, I don't want it to be too complicated and going, like, too convoluted, or I want to just make it very clear and understandable, so whether people are following the map or not, they can be getting the information from there. Because it's all important. Like the spiders that made it. The wicked webs they weave. Yeah, you guys doing the spiders. You're funny. I'm, like, way behind in the chat. Maybe I should have done slow chat, or maybe I should actually pay attention more to the chat. But once I get on a roll with this, and because there's so many connections, like, I got to get from A to B, or it gets so confusing too. And for people that are just fresh joining us that haven't been following along, I want to make sure that they're able to kind of pick up what we're putting down here. And then they can work backwards and catch up if they want. But at least everybody, every time, catching something, getting something out of it. Jared Leto's, he's going to go on here somewhere. But the Joker movies, because the Joker movies are specifically made by that one guy that did the documentary. Where did he go? This guy. The Joker movies have brought on a whole new meaning, and the fact that Joaquin Phoenix was in the one, and then there's the Heath Ledger situation, and then looking at what happened with Jared Leto, like, that's going to be its whole own dive on its own, because, like, the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus is starting to become real life here, and that situation with Heath Ledger and the Olsen twins, and, like, there's a lot going on there, so to fit in that part of it, I got to do all of it. Like, I can't just do the one part of that, just the Jared Leto and the Suicide Squad and whatever the fuck he did. But he did a cult. He's got, like, a cult going now or something too, I think, the Jared Leto thing. And yeah, of course there would be military ties. That's not surprising. Yeah, and then there's the alphabet agencies we have to consider, but that's like the hidden curriculum. That's the playbook that I've been laying out in the Hollywood's hidden curriculum. And then that all comes into play here because that's how you maintain the conspiracy of silence, and that's how you program people. Like, all of that, the techniques learned during that are all coming into play here in different ways, depending on what they're trying to program them for, so, but we're going to save that. I don't want to get too deep into that. We're almost up to the two hours here, and I've been trying to keep these at least 2 hours. I don't want to get too off track. I want to keep them bite-sized enough for people. And actually, I should probably start going through and doing, like, clipping sections of explaining certain subgroups within this, so people can kind of follow along their own trail, whichever way they want to go with it. Yeah, the media teaches not to trust parents. They're old, they don't understand, but then into the yeah. Yes, a lot of media is like the kids. Yeah, and which also was grooming a lot of kids, especially in the 80s and 90s, to seek emancipations. Like a lot of the media they were making was also helping them support their argument to emancipate them and take control of their career for them and therefore them. Like with the Macaulay Culkin, which I mean, some of it is rumor, some of it we're not 100% sure, but we know that Macaulay had abruptly decided to quit acting. There was some deaths around that were a little weird. There was some other stuff a little weird, and who it all connects to is a little weird. But it was almost as if like somebody had said, "Oh, if you don't do X, Y, Z, you'll never work again. You need to do what I say. Your parents aren't managing you properly," which they weren't. There was a lot of truths to the rumors also, which makes it more complicated. But he just left. He just left the industry and then came back later and kind of did some stuff here and there. And he's only really just coming back now. So, you know, but not everybody can just choose to do that. Like, he had generational wealth already by that point, and he was, you know, in a good place that he could just walk away. Where then you have other situations, like with the Tyler Chase, and like with this Kiana Underwood, which we'll get into that more on another stream. I want to dig more. I've got to fill in more about with the Nickelodeon, and we still, like, there's still so much there to fill in, but it's more complicated because there is so many more little animation studios and stuff, and you're not even safe there. You know, like, some of these animator guys are just as weird. Like, these are animators. And then they use that tie as a form of grooming and what they're doing, like the cartoons. So there's a lot more going on there than just the live acting stuff. But when you've got the Tyler Chase situation and the Kiana, like, we're going to get more into that because the way that a lot of these kids shows and kids movies and stuff are set up, that they're not getting residuals later either. So once they've chewed them up, spit them out, thrown them out on their own, and they want to be adults and get away from their parents and try to continue their life, it's impossible. It's impossible. And a lot of them are left with a lot of tax debt, which is what happened like with Aaron Carter. He was left with like $1.8 million in owing in taxes because instead of, like, the parents were putting away money for him, but then they were making up for it by just not doing the taxes properly. So in the end, he still got left with less than nothing after sacrificing his entire childhood for their enjoyment and gain. So that's kind of fucked up, but that happens a lot too. And then a lot of people don't make it. They don't make it out the other side because then, yeah, they end up homeless or they end up on drugs because, like, how do you claw your way back up from them putting you at rock bottom and after being harmed and trespassed upon and whatever might have happened? Like, we know now that a lot of just being a famous child can cause trauma, and we're starting to be a little more open about that and be able to talk about that more. But, like, there are decades of damage happening that have happened that's only just starting to be reformed and changed now. So there's still a lot of work to be done. Yeah, explains a lot about the cult. Strange Days in the Canyon. Yeah. That's one. Yeah, I recommend that one too. That one's a good one. There's a lot of good media that's hard to find that I think I should start making a list of that too. Some of the books, some of the movies that were trying to tell us something. I just need to get a little more organized. But I think, yeah, now after this, and then we're going to kind of pivot to the Trump scene thing a little bit now that there's more and more stuff becoming more clear over there. So we're going to do that Friday. I still want to get this Brittany Murphy video done. And I have some other videos that very much tie into this that I was working on before the Nick Reiner thing happened. But the JonBenet, the Brittany Murphy, everything kind of got put on hold. And I ended up with way more pots on the stove than I meant to. So we're going to try to work our way through that and get that next episode of the Dark Child Star Nexus coming together. Which actually it might have made sense that it's been delayed because I figured out how to do FOIA requests. And I have some very interesting things coming. One thing for sure in March. That's the timeline they've given me. And the other thing I at least found the right department. Like, they kept bouncing me around, and it's a little suspicious because I feel like I'm back to the first department and then they're actually going to process it now. So that was a little weird. But Canada's request system versus the US is a little different, and they're like changing stuff around. So it was a little bit of a run around. But some of the stuff that I'm inquiring very heavily plays into this whole thing. And I was like, it's like I was hot on the trail without really knowing where it was going then, you know, between doing the TW Theory article in early November and the videos I was already working on and how some of this stuff is coming very much big into play from a different angle, from what I've been covering, like with the River Phoenix and everybody else. So far, it's a little more, I'm coming back at it with a lot more wisdom and knowledge now, because when I first started this, I was really just going into the woods blind, you know, but now every time I circle back around, I'm revealing a lot more and becoming a little more wise and understanding, and more dots are connecting, more puzzle pieces are being revealed. So I think this is where the map's really becoming a really helpful tool to keep track of all that too, and how it all connects for future videos, you know, like this will be a forever thing. I don't think this will ever be over. There will always be more things I can be adding and going into the past, obviously, like to the Shirley Temple, the Judy Garland, Bobby Driscoll. I have to add on, he's sort of starting to come into the hub, I've sort of already started adding a little bit, like we've got the chaplain on here, starting to get into the previous eras. So once we've gone all the way back, then we can only go forwards, and this is going to end up being a huge thing, I think, and it already is a huge thing, but I think this will be a tool that people can use for years to come, which actually I have made it available now, but for a price, because for the most part it seems like it's like media and people that want to use it for their content coming through, and that aren't following along and don't really even know what's going on, but they want the information. So there is a fee to do a direct access for while I'm offline. Eventually I do want to make it freely available, though. I think there's just so much tidying and organizing, and it is still so in development. It's like an early access. It's like when a video game's early access, and some people will pay for the early access, but there's just so much going on with it. So I have allowed a paid access, and anybody over a certain tier over on Patreon, so that's the other alternative, is I've given a half off. If you use code MindMap, it's half off those above tiers that also include the mind map. But I just need to, I don't know, I'm also need to be very careful about this, and I need to, like, some of these colors are subject to change, and I don't want there to be misinterpretation, because, like, I've added this legend, it's in the, obviously it's in the live stream too, but I've added it just onto the thing too, so people can check it out and explore at their leisure. But I want to make sure that it's very clear, and that it's not misinterpreted with some of these dots, that maybe they weren't convicted, but there's a number of allegations and a number of times they've kind of just gotten off on it, you know, like with the Buzzfield situation. He's never done jail time for it necessarily, but he, you know what I mean? So, but I need to be very clear, and I need to make the color coding a little more specific and a little more, like, for the combinations of colors, like, just, it doesn't make sense to some people just yet. And I think to make it a little more complete and a little more organized before just opening it up to opening the floodgates just seems to make sense to me. And also just to the fact that, like, I'm treading in very dangerous waters here. I mean, look at all the red dots that were people that were likely trying to speak out about some stuff. Like River Phoenix had been starting to talk out about the harm and trespasses against him in childhood, and he was becoming very active in, like, environmentalism and, like, trying to do the right thing charity-wise, and kind of setting a bad example for some other celebrities, you know. So that's a little more of a questionable if he really had done himself in, or if there was something else more going on there. We don't know, but we know, like, with the eye-cappy thing was suspicious. We know people sort of die, like, they just sort of die when they're getting too close to the truth sometimes for weird reasons, like the Kyle Marissa Roth or whatever, who was doing stuff over on TikTok. That was weird. That was suspicious. So, I mean, I do gotta acknowledge that I might be putting myself in danger, and if ever I do need to pick up and relocate, to have a little bit of extra money to do that won't hurt. So if people want to see the whole thing and aren't wanting to follow along, like, because obviously it's still free, we're still going over it in segments, all the new stuff I add. It's all freely available, but for people that want to just cut to the chase and don't want to follow the series, they can pay a fee for that, for now. So if you guys are wanting that, I think the link's already in the description. If not, I did post about it. I'm pretty sure I put the link in the description, though. But the links to everything else, just to get to Patreon, everything's on Patreon, so it's just easy. Those links are already in the description, so if you go and you're checking out the free articles, the TW Theory, it's all there anyway, and you can decide where you want to go from there. But the legal systems are broken too. Like, you see a lot of people, that are, like, really hardcore, not a good person, and somehow they spend, like, a day in jail and then they let them out. Like this guy, oh, we're going to let you go. Make sure you make it there for your opening night of Misery in association with Rob Reiner's Castle Rock. Don't want you to miss out on that at your children's theater. Don't want to let your allegations from children get in the way of you doing your opening night at your children's theater with your Rob Reiner, Stephen King presentation. Don't let those kids' allegations get in your way, bud. Like, come on, you know, like, it's kind of fucked up. Because they let him out. He's now, I think he's being released, or has been released, this Timothy Buzzfield, with all of these other allegations. And it being a children's theater. Let's go let him go to the children's theater. It's fine. He can wait for the trial. No other kids will be harmed in between, probably. Like, I feel like that's not something you want to risk. Like, why is that a risk we're willing to take? Because it's not their children? And, like, what? I don't know. Like, what is the justification for that? I don't understand. Because he's got money? Who's bailing him out? He can't really have that much money. Like, it's not like he's not like a big, wonderful Wizard of Oz, but he had enough, I guess, that he was doing his own productions and his own directing after all of these allegations. And then being handed a show. And then being given a role on The West Wing. Like, he was almost being congratulated and rewarded for all of this, is what it feels like to me. I don't know. I could be wrong. I might be crazy. I don't know. You guys decide how to feel on that. Oh, yeah. Well, Stellar, yeah. If we get into the other spheres tie more into the corporate entities that are tying in all of this, but a lot of it's just little places too. Like a lot of it's like Bob Villard's not a huge deal. He's a photographer, publicist, whatever, and he did a lot of damage over the years. Like, that's a big part of the infection. So, like, sure, yeah, you could follow the yellow brick road all the way up where the money goes, but we need to start chipping away at the bottom of the house of cards so the whole thing comes falling down. We can't aim for the top. Like, that's not how it works. You know, like, we got to start chipping away here and start being able to identify here, so that their organized group that pays all the way up to the top, like, that the yellow brick road won't exist to trail people down if we start dismantling the red brick road. You know what I mean? That won't be this, like, the incentive won't be there the same. It won't be the same structure if we start dismantling it from the bottom up. And it's the little people that have gone through all of this, that have been chewed up and spit out, that know the most about what's going on behind the scenes, and or have made a choice to be, you know, on the outside of things. Or, you know, you've got those one-hit wonders, and you wonder, like, oh, they're so talented, like, why did they never make anything else after that? Well, maybe they didn't like what was coming with it, you know, maybe they didn't want to go down that red brick road. But yeah, let me catch up with you guys, and then, yeah, I think we'll wrap her up here. I think that was pretty good. Another good session, covers just about everything. But then definitely, check out those articles, and just keep an eye out, I guess, on Patreon, because I'm going to be releasing more articles as I go. And the group, the Eyes Wide Open group, linked in the description. I've been dropping some more tidbits that are, like, things I'm finding as I go along that connect into this whole main thing. And I think I'm going to do a video for the different connections the more connections I've found between all of this and the Buzzfield thing, because that is top of mind. And then as we're, you know, getting into this, the trial, it's, you know, we want to stay on top of it, so I will be doing that. You haven't watched a movie in 6 years, no music, discovering that it's subliminal. Wow. Well, definitely a lot of it is. Like, I'm definitely very intentional and very picky with what I will choose to consume that's outside of, for research, you know. Like, almost everything I consume is for research, and I don't really listen to music much anymore. It's like here and there, you know, and I'm very specific that way too. It's like, I like the underground stuff, like, or more like independent everything. Like, anything I'm consuming, I like more of the independent that's not really tied to a big conglomerate, I'm finding, you know, when it comes to media and music. But yeah, it's not very often that I'm consuming anything at this point that's not to do with a research or trying to find something about something, you know. It's all part of this prime objective. Because, like, I've always kind of liked doing this. Like, I've always been very inquisitive and like to read about stuff and learn about stuff myself. Because I never really believed what the television was telling me about anything. So, I don't know. I kind of like doing this. This is sort of my hobby as much as it is also the thing, you know, the primary thing that I'm doing here. Yeah. Yep, Al Gore, Bill Clinton, of course, right? And like, this is the list. People want to talk about the Epstein list and they're not releasing it. Well, here's your list. Here's your list. You know, here's the list. You guys want to see some lists? You know? And here's how it all interconnects. Here's all the proof and the list. Like, if we wanted to call some people out, we are going to back it up. Because we're not just going to come out here willy-nilly with baseless accusations or just going off of one story or one rumor or one whatever. We're going to go all the way around the whole elephant, study it from front to back, top to bottom, and figure out if, you know, exactly where it all fits in. And if it's, the convictions and stuff obviously help solidify claims, but this is undeniable. There's so much to this that's just undeniable about this pipeline of destruction that seems to be happening, you know, because the wrong people get the wrong kind of power, or they get the wrong people have money, or the wrong people, like, it's not the money that's really the problem. It's not really the industry that's the problem. It's not really, you know, it's not the movies really that are the problem. It's the people making them and that have different agendas. It's the humans that make things wrong, you know. Like, a lot of this doesn't have to be a fucking whole thing, but some sick people are sick in the head and causing a lot of trauma along the way, and then somehow justifying it to themselves, right? Satanism, that's so irrelevant. It has nothing to do with religion. You could be any religion and be part of this club. This club doesn't see religion or language or country or politics. This is the club. These kind of people are the club. Satanism doesn't, like, doesn't narrow down anything for us. Sadism narrows it down for us. Sadism is something we can prove that is a psychological rot of the mind. It's not a demon in your mind. It's a sadist. Like, you can be sadistic and have sadist type preferences, like these people. I don't think any of these people are associated with any Satanism, but they are sadistic and sexually depraved. So we need to start using language that makes sense and that is all encompassing and that is secular and makes sense, because none of these people are Satanists. So why are they doing sadistic things? Because you don't have to be a sadist, or like, all Satanists maybe are sadists, but you don't have to be a Satanist to be a sadist. Like, let's start figuring it out here. Sadistic people, sadism is all encompassing. And it doesn't matter where you come from. If you're a sadist against children, it doesn't matter where you come from, what church you go to, what language you speak. That's the problem. You're in that group, and that is the problem. That is an infection that we need to figure out how to stop having it causing harm. Satanism is almost a cloak of, let's blame the Satanists for what all the nice people are doing. What all the nice, upstanding citizens that are so loved in their community and been doing such great service for their community all these years with their charitable children's theater. What a lovely man. He's so loved. What a great guy. That guy is the fucking evil. That's evil incarnate. At least the Satanists are open, like, with their bloodletting and whatever weird fucking shit they're doing. They're not hiding it under the guise of, oh, I'm so wonderful. I'm a wonderful Wizard of Oz. Look at me. Let me be a wonderful Wizard of Oz, but while also being a fan favorite of fucking Nambla. That has nothing to do with Satanism. That's sexual deviance and sadism in some cases, getting to the point of sadism. But sexual depravity isn't exclusive to any specific group. So the fact that people are like, oh, it's Satanism. No, it actually isn't, though. It is maybe also. Aquino's really pretty weird guy. Pretty questionable, connects to some questionable stuff, but that doesn't narrow down anything. That doesn't narrow down anything, because most of them are not that. You don't have to be that to be sick and depraved and sadistic, and that's the point I've been trying to make for a long time too. And I think everybody's starting to get on that page, but. Yeah, Seth Green too, yep. And that's why I have him as a wild card. This is like a wild card color scheme for him right now. I don't know, that might be subject to change too, but that's why he's like that. A weird color scheme on his own, because he's kind of a wild card. They rely on the distraction. Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors and distraction. And you got to think how much content is literally enticing and programming your kids by also doing that to the kids in the movie and then to your kids by them watching the movie. Like, you really need to be diligent and know what your kids are watching. Like, you almost at this point, before watching any new content, watch it first before they watch it, because the amount of subliminal, fetishism and kinks under the guise of children's humor and stuff too, like, they're just getting better and better at that. Like, look at how Dan Schneider got off scot-free for decades of fetishized children's content that wasn't necessarily sexual, but if an adult can be gratifying themselves sexually to that content, well, now we have a problem. Because we know there's feet people. We know there's adults that like feet. Like, so same goes, right? All of the Oz books, yeah. Yeah, the Oz storyline is like, there's like flip sides to that. There's very coded language that's used for good and for evil, I think. Because I'm trying to use it for good. Like, I'm referring to the Red Brick Road, and we're using, like, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. We're using the coded language for good. This is the defense against the dark arts. Because as much as some of these themes in these movies are used for evil, everyone can understand the reference. So without me having to say certain things, I can make references by using some of the terminology and then turn it right on them. Turns it right back on them, Because for those of you that are aware of the K of it all, we know that certain themes like the Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan are part of the program. It's all part of the program and the grooming and the training, right? So, yeah, well, we all did. We all were encouraged to, and they were reproduced every decade or so for the new generation, right? So we've all watched it. We've all seen it. We all know. I'm going to have to just probably block the word Satanist because, like, that's such a distraction. Like, that's how they've discounted victims for so many years, using words like demons and Satanism and all this bullshit. When, like, sure, yeah, some people are a little bit of a demon when they're doing a bad thing, but is it narcissism and sadism and sexual depravity? Like, you're not using language that makes sense when you're calling somebody a demon or a Satanist. That doesn't really narrow it down. Because, and you don't have to be on any of those things. It doesn't have to be part of that. It doesn't have anything to do with it in the overall, right? So I'm probably going to just block that word too. We're going to start blocking all kinds of words so that we can keep this conversation, like, it needs to make sense. We want to have a productive conversation. We've been talking in circles for so freaking long. Like, decades on decades, using the same language, the same terms, saying the same shit over and over and over again and expecting a different result and getting fucking nowhere. So, with all this 10 years of study and research and with the map and with everything I'm doing over here, I think I might be onto something. And if people want to say whatever they want to say about what words and things, how I'm forming the language or how I'm changing the language, they can say whatever they want about that. But I've seen for years and years and years, people can't get anywhere with this. And then the satanic panic thing was like, they use that to dismiss people's experiences and negate them. And you got to think, people are drugged a lot of the time. So sure, they maybe are seeing shape-shifting or they're seeing a demon or they're seeing this. Well, maybe they're on drugs. Because Operation Midnight Climax, maybe we do that research. If you didn't do that homework yet, look that up. And then it makes the Diddy situation make a lot more sense. And the Epstein situation and the P3DO den, all that makes more sense if you understand the history and the psychology. We need to educate ourselves. We can't keep throwing around terminology that doesn't confirm or make anything any clearer. It doesn't make any progress. We want to have productive conversations that give progress, right? So, we're going to block some more words here. And then people are like, why are you blah, blah, blah? Somebody was like, why is the WWF blocked? I'm like, well, obviously you're saying the word WWF right now, so it's obviously not blocked, but... and I guess I gotta adjust that too. I just noticed how off the freaking chat is. Oh well. I'm moving stuff around and fixing stuff as I go. Where is it? The chat window. I'm gonna move that over a little bit. Looks a little weird being so far over like that. A little more centered. There we go. Doesn't have to look pretty, but... anyway, so that was good. I think that was good. Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns? I actually caught up, too. Having just the subscribers only thing has probably been good, too, because you don't get riffraff coming through. and just causing a ruckus. Like, they get chaos agents that come through and want to try to, like, throw the conversation off course and throw the overall message off course. Because the overall message is, are they a bystander, a perpetrator, or a victim of crimes against children? That's the point. It doesn't matter. The politics doesn't matter. The religion doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's all distraction. Divide and conquer. Are you for harm against children or against it? It's that simple. It's that simple. Right? So we're going to keep it that simple. Yeah. Yeah, you guys get it. I think you guys were, yeah, doesn't seem like there's too many questions. Seems like you're all happy with that presentation. We went into the new stuff I've added. So yeah, like I said, everything's in the description. We're maybe having some special guests coming, maybe this week, maybe next week. It's going to be kind of casual, but there's some people coming to the surface here that are going to be a contributor to this, that are all part of, they've been fighting the good fight for years and getting silenced and suppressed and all different, the beacon is out, and I'm starting to reach out to some people that I know have been doing some really good work in ethical reporting and have had this struggle as well. Like, a lot of people have this struggle that are trying to tell the truth. There's no incentive in telling the truth, and so we've got some people coming through that when the time, it's going to be tough to, like, line it up for when I'm going to stream and whatever, and I might not be able to plan it ahead, so it might be spontaneous when they come through, but we're going to start having some special guests coming through, and just more confirmation about some things, and just a little more in-depth information. Like, certain people have been studying for several years on certain spheres within this map, so I think it being a group project that way, and us all becoming a little more of a united front that way, and supporting one another. The people that don't get the suggestibility, like, everybody knows the people on the surface that are telling them truths, quote unquote truths, but there's a reason they have that much of a platform, because they're not necessarily get you any further from what's already public knowledge. We're trying to talk about things that aren't public knowledge, that are buried in the media here, and there's a lot of people that need to get the spotlight on what they're doing too, because it's all important work, and I'm noticing more and more about how much harder it is to break through that barrier. And, like, I was kind of lucky to have been doing a different thing with this channel first, and then kind of converted it over at like 30,000 subs, and then I was doing I've kind of gone around the pivoting around in different ways to get to where I am doing this, and just having prior knowledge that helps, I guess, in this sphere has helped me get a bit of a platform here. And I think that to putting spotlight on people that, like, never broke 5,000 subs, but they've got hundreds of really good videos, or whatever, or dozens or whatever, doesn't matter how many videos, but they've been doing it a long time, and they have a lot of good work that they've been doing that's, like, just not seeing the light of day. It's time to start shining the light on that, because they have good information. They've been doing ethical reporting, and so there's a few people, can't really say for sure either, because some people, maybe they're feeling gung-ho about it, but, like, people that are victims too, sometimes they're they want to talk about it, then they're not sure, and so I want to keep it like a casual space where if I'm streaming and they want to drop in, they can. So we're going to kind of have it like that, rather than a promo, give you a heads up of who's coming when. So just that's the heads up you're getting, though, is that there's going to probably be some special guests coming through in the coming days and weeks. But I'm not going to say anything, because some people might not want to still, like, because this is unsafe for some people too. You got to think of some of the people in this sphere. Like, Bughall came out and said what he said, and then he went into, like, a vow of poverty and to live in the woods as a homesteader, totally unplugged off the grid as much as you can in this day and age, for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason people do certain things, and, for their own safety. So people that are kind of contributing to this, this might be a little bit of a fearful thing, like how, like, Desi was saying, like, oh man, the top of your map is scary to me, and I'm like, yeah, but looking at your map, the top of your map is scary to me, you know what I mean? So I think for different people coming from different angles and where they their experience or understanding and knowledge about certain things, you just never know. You never know, and I want to always make sure that they feel safe to just talk about stuff, and it's never going to be, it doesn't have to be about the content. We can just have conversations and just make my depth of understanding more substantial, and it not even being about the content. You know what I mean? I just want to make sure I'm giving good information, and that we're connecting more dots, and that we're giving voices to the voiceless. All these red dots who can't speak for themselves now. It's all a story. They all have a story to tell. And there's a lot of people out here trying to tell that story from a different angle, and because too, you know, a lot of us, I know you guys know, like for me, this is personal. You know, I've got my own story, and a lot of you guys are here because you've got your own story. You know, we all got trauma anomalies we're trying to figure out for ourselves. But anyways, thanks for coming out, guys. Thank you regulars that are been here right from the get-go and coming through on this journey and watching the evolution of all this. And it's still not fitting right. I see now why I had it over for the chat, because the longer names. Yeah. I resized everything and moved stuff around, so now the layout's a little fucky. Sorry, guys. But yeah, like I'm really appreciating you guys that are like right here for this, and like I'm pivoting so much and kind of juggling different things. And some of you guys are here for the John Bonet, some of you are here for the Reiner thing, some of you here for the Brittany Murphy stuff. But I assure you, it does all come back and tie in together. It all makes sense in the end. It all connects. So whichever side you're coming on, I can appreciate that you're here with me for this, because this is the thing. This is the big one. So all the support and everybody that's been subscribing and grabbing up the Hollywood's hidden curriculum and stuff, really appreciate that too. Like all, you know, every drop in the ocean of influence counts, and you don't need to be an influencer to help make waves of change. You know, we're all in this together. And also the suggestions in the comments, I think now that I've made it a little clearer what the map is, and with the legend and stuff, I'm getting a lot more good suggestions. Like you guys are starting to get more hot on the trail, and like fresh people that are coming and that don't really know what's going on, they're picking up what we're putting down a lot quicker now. So I'm getting a lot more better suggestions that are fitting into the overall here. So that's been awesome to see. So I'm loving that. I love, like, if anybody's got anything afterwards they forget, or if I missed it, if I didn't see it in the chat, you want to drop it in the comments, would be awesome. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know. Kind of tired. Like, I literally am going to need a proper couple days off here soon, because the mental exhaustion, the emotional exhaustion with all of this has been, like, beyond. Like, obviously already what I do is, like, difficult to find the balance for mental health and wellness, and getting a proper sleep schedule, and eating properly, because it's so hard to eat and sleep when you really are right in the depth of the you know, when you start making more realizations and more connections, it's tough. So I'm going to probably try to space this out a little more. You know, there was a few days there it was like every day, but I'm going to probably space these out a bit more and juggle it around. And like I said, I really want to get the Brittany Murphy done, because it is a very important part of this whole thing. But what else? I don't know. I think that was pretty much it. I don't know. My brain's kind of mush now. Getting tired. I'm going to eat some food and probably try to crash at a decent hour tonight, because I've been burning the candle at both ends here. But, you know, we're here. And no more red dots. That's becoming the motto now. No more red dots. Like, orange dots are okay. We can talk about that. We can do something about that. We can fix that. We can't fix it, but we can still work on that. But red dots, it's finite. It's definite. It's eternal. And we don't want any more red dots. So that's what we're doing here. But thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Hopefully we catch you on Friday. I think it's Friday that we've got the next live stream thing going on. And keep your eye out for everything else that's coming up, because we got a lot of great videos coming up soon too. That it's all part of the great big elephant in the room. You know, it's all one big, you know, all the rabbit holes, they all open up to one great big cavern with one great big elephant that's been shitting everywhere and filling up the cavern all this time. But it's the same elephant. It's all the same elephant. Different piles of shit, same elephant. So we're gonna fucking figure it out. We're gonna get out of there. Then we're gonna cleanse the infection, cleanse the wound, before putting a Band-Aid on it. And maybe we could all do better and feel better as a society. But that said, yeah, I think I set it up too, so now it does the outro for me. Hold on, we're gonna test that out. If it doesn't work, I'm sorry guys, but I added it into the outro thing. So yeah, ciao for now, brown cows. This video has been brought to you by Patreon, where I post more info, resources, bonus, and uncensored content. Everything is free to all members. Paid members just get early access, and some other features and benefits. It's mainly just a way to support the cause, stay informed with behind-the-scenes updates, and there is a public chat. I share all other news and updates outside of my body of work to the Eyes Wide Open group and over on Twitter. Everything mentioned and more can be found in the description. Lastly, make sure to like, hype, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Red bricks crumble under my feet, a path that whispers a cursed heartbeat. Shadows stretch long, they know my name. Every step forward, it's all the same. The trees lean in, they're alive tonight. The moon's too scared to give me light.
this all.